Hello.
Yes, hi.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Next Level Love Stories.
hmm
Today, we're super excited to bring you Brian and Erica McKay, who are the passionate duo behind Be Connected Relationship Coaching.
hmm
Brian and Erica specialize in creating deep, meaningful connections between engaged and long-term married couples. They have decades of experience in personal development field, plus a heartfelt mission to foster more love and reduce suffering, such that they've created a unique coaching program to emphasize effective communication, emotional intimacy, and proactive relationship maintenance. It sounds a lot like ours.
Well, yeah, it does.
There's a lot of resonance here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we are really excited to hear your story. And I'll say, just in case anybody's interested in the work that Brian and Erica do, they have a signature 12-week program, Connected Marriage, that leverages 2-on-2 sessions, which we love doing.
Yeah.
Makes such a difference when you get two people with your two people. And this provides their couples with an unbiased male and female perspective, equips them with the tools they need to rekindle the spark in their marriage. And they also have the Connected Engagement 12-week program for engaged couples who want to nip any challenges in the bud before they say I do.
Yeah, good move.
Yeah.
Yes. We had it.
Yes. I think as they recognize about themselves, y'all, and I really believe this, what sets Brian and Erica apart is their holistic approach to relationship coaching. They are really genuinely dedicated to guiding couples through the inevitable challenges of love, offering practical strategies and compassionate support every step of the way. That commitment to fostering lasting marital success shines through in all aspects of their work, making them the trusted partners for couples who are deeply committed to growing together. And so today we get to learn more about not their business as much, but them. Who are Brian and Erica? What has their relationship journey been like? And we'll probably touch a little bit on how it brought you into the work that you're doing, because
Entrepreneurial journey. Yeah.
that's a thing. But we're, it's so great to have another couple who's lived this work and is doing this work and sharing this work with the world, because we know full well how many people really need it and how much it impacts our lives when our marriages or our relationships are
not
working, and how much better it is when they are. So welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us about your love story. What makes it a next level love for you two?
Where do we start? So I guess we'll start at the beginning when we first got together. So we had
we
lot
actually
of
got to start before we got together.
You want to start before? Okay. Where would you like to start this? Because it's a long story.
I mean, we met. I was just getting into the personal training field and holistic health, and so I found a mentor that I was working for at the time, and he recommended this particular type of chiropractic called NUCA, which they focus only on C1 and C2 vertebrae, which kind of it has a cascade effect down the chain of the spine. And so I started my care there. And within, I don't know, a few months, there was this like hot new receptionist there, and chiropractic assistant. Excuse me.
Get the title right.
Yeah. And I saw her, and as guys tend to, they look at the left hand, and there was a ring there. I was like, damn, well, that's not going to work, because I had done the adultery thing in the past with married women a couple of times. Took me more than once to learn that lesson, but I was not going to go down that rabbit hole again. And so it was just nothing ever became of anything until, and I'll let you take over at this part.
So I started working at that chiropractic office. Shout out to Precise Chiropractic in Troy. We live in Florida. Yeah, Troy, Michigan. We live in Florida now, but I worked at that office for about 8, maybe 9 years, and I seen miracles come through the door, and people were healed. So if anybody's having health ailments, NUCA, it's the way to go. Anyways, back to our story. I started working there. I was still married. I actually got married. I met my ex-husband when I was 15. Got married when I was 17. So I was quite young. Didn't really know who I was. Didn't know anything about life, but just dove, head first into a marriage. We had a lot of issues, obviously. I was young. I was still trying to find myself. I was under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure in that marriage, and a lot went wrong. There was multiple infidelities on both of our parts. A lot of really toxic, unhealthy behaviors. We actually sought out couples counseling. We went, I think, twice. And this is part of why I decided to be a coach versus a counselor. This is just my personal experience. We went twice. The counselor had said she was spot on, first of all. So she basically said, to my ex-husband, you're treating her as if she's your daughter. You're acting very controlling. You need to stop that behavior. However, because he was 8 years my senior, he had a really, really big complex about my age. So when she said, you are treating her as if she's your daughter, his ego completely blocked it. And he's like, no, we're done. She's crazy. We're never seeing her again. And that was like completely done. And that was like heartbreaking because I knew we needed help. And because it was handled in that way, he felt blamed, he felt criticized, and he couldn't handle it. So we stopped going. A lot more happened in our marriage. We ended up getting divorced. I was actually going through my divorce when I worked at the chiropractic office, ended up meeting him, seen him, and was like, there's something about this guy. I don't know what it is, but like, he's obviously attractive, but there's like something else. Like, I just felt really cold to him for whatever reason. And we would like kind of chat back and forth and like try to be flirty, but like stumble around and just act like really awkward.
And trying to still maintain a professionalism in a professional environment. It's clunky to say the least.
So kind of waited it out a little bit. And then I ended up getting divorced. I waited about 6 months after my divorce was final. Probably hindsight, should have waited a little longer, but nonetheless, I waited about 6 months. And I was such a chicken shit to talk to him. I had to find him on Facebook. I decided to go that route. So I looked for him on Facebook, couldn't find him. And I'm like, okay, I got to figure this out. So I went into like full blown stalking mode. I was like, I know I can find him. This can't be hard. His mom was a patient at the office. So I found her page, and through her page, I found him. So I sent him a friend request. Why don't you take it over when you got the friend request?
Sure, yeah. So I got the friend request, and I remember like, I was with my mentor at the time, and like I showed him, and like both our jaws just kind of dropped, like, what? And so yeah, I sent her a message, hey, what's going on? And frankly, I don't remember much after that, if I'm being honest.
We went on a date. I should probably add, he was in another relationship when we got together.
It was off again, on again, trying to make it work, and round peg in a square hole type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got together. I had not processed my divorce and the loss of my marriage. I hadn't done any work on any of that. I waited years and years and years to process any of that. So I jumped into a new relationship with all of that not healed and unprocessed. He jumped into a relationship without really doing any healing or processing from his ex.
I was starting to do some personal development work, but nowhere near the depth that needed to be done.
Yeah. So we got together, and things were very hard. He had some very, very deep-seated commitment issues to where like clockwork every 2 months he would break up with me, and I would be like heartbroken and shattered and crying and all of that. And then like a week after he broke up, I'd get like a random text message like, hey, Erica, how's it going? And I started to like, after like months and months of this happening, I started to see a pattern of like, this is what this guy does. He breaks up with me every 2 months, and then a week later he comes back. So I ended up recognizing that pattern. And then I guess on top of that too, we were together, how long before I got pregnant?
We were about 6 months.
Okay. We were together about 6 months dealing with everything we were dealing with the commitment issues and the arguing and just the struggle. And then I found out I was pregnant. So I'm like, okay, like now we're really in for it because our relationship is not on solid ground. And now we're going to bring a baby into this. You know, at that point, like I never even held a baby until I held my own baby. So I had zero experience with babies or children or anything. So I got pregnant, told him about it. I was actually so afraid to tell him about it. I sent him a picture of my pregnancy test, and that was how I told him. So I was a lot different back then. So we decided, it was a lot of back and forth. Like, should we work it out? Should we co-parent? What should we do? We ultimately decided, like, let's give it a go. Let's work at it. You know, had my daughter, moved in together. So we were really struggling on the relationship front, had a newborn baby that we didn't know what the hell we were doing with. And then we moved in together. And at that point, he never lived with a female. So that was very difficult. And it was hard.
Female and a new baby.
My God.
Yes. Yeah. There was a lot going on, a lot of changing. So
trial by fire.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes. And we were really struggling. I mean, there was a point where I was a very reactive, very mean person. If I felt uncomfortable, if I had abandonment issues at that point. So if I felt he was going to run, I would have major freakouts, and that would trigger him. And, you know, I was an anxious attachment. He was avoidant. So we had that dynamic kind of working against us. A lot of fighting, a lot of yelling, a lot of screaming. I was also an alcoholic. So that was also working against us as well. There was a lot. I mean, for a while, things were so unhealthy and so painful. And we decided to get some help. And I remember being very weary of that because I had flashbacks to when me and my ex went to couples counseling, and it basically destroyed us. So I remember saying, like, I'm very nervous about doing this because this could either make or break us. I'm really nervous. And he had been in the coaching space for a long time at that point. And he ended up getting a recommendation for a husband and wife coaching team. And we started working with them. We worked with them for, I don't know, 6 months. It was 6 months. Yeah. About 6 months. And it was very helpful, but there was still a lot that wasn't being addressed. There was still a lot of communication blocks and things that were not getting resolved. We were better, but we were still like not in a great spot. So we stopped working with them. We started, I started working with a coach myself. He started working with a coach on his own, started kind of working on us as an individual rather than the relationship. That definitely helped, but it was still like not moving the needle enough. So mind you, at this point, it had been years of struggling, years of like wondering if this is just not the right fit and we need to throw in the towel. And we decided to kind of just take matters into our own hands. And I started one thing about me, I research everything. I am a researcher. I love it. It is like my favorite pastime is to learn and to research things. Awesome. And that's what we started doing. I found all these different communication things and we started practicing it. And all of these different exercises and these concepts. And I found all these really cool books. And I spent years just learning how to fix this. What do we do? And of course, I had the assistance from Brian as well. He brought in more of like the health and the wellness, and I brought in the sex and the relationships. We started mixing it all together. And we kind of realized that our relationship was starting to thrive. And that's a lot of where Be Connected was born. In the fact of like, we hear people so often say, you know, we're seeing a therapist or we're seeing a counselor and it's not helping. I go into a session and we talk and I leave and I feel worse and nothing's resolved. I'm just talking my problems to death. and they're not actually getting the help they need. And that honestly, that a lot of that was our experience too. So that's a lot of the reason why we created and why we do what we do, because it's like we found something very special, and now it's kind of like we found it, and now it's like our responsibility in a sense to just share that with the world.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've been just talking and talking.
Yeah. It's what you do, dear.
It is.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess one thing I wanted to kind of double click on from probably 5 minutes ago was the my avoidant behavior and my thing to break up every 2 months. And you know, it took, I mean, looking back, it took like 15 years to figure out that pattern.
Wow.
Which started back in 8th grade when my first girlfriend at 8th grade cheated on me. You know, her friend came and told me about 58 days after we started dating that she had, you know, went off and kissed another guy. And so I had this inherent subconscious thing where I'm going to leave you before you can cheat on me, leave me, whatever else it might be. And so that carried on for like 15 years before I finally figured that pattern out. So it's just, it's something that I feel like somebody might be able to, you know, kind of find parallels in their lives and maybe unpack something. But,
it's definitely, it's huge kind of looking at our patterns that, you know, we perceive as negative, that aren't really serving us, and kind of going back to where that started and where we learned that behavior. Because, you know, he had that experience with, you know, the commitment issues and not wanting to stay in relationships. I had an issue with infidelity. I really struggled with remaining faithful to partners. I struggled with my ex-husband. I struggled with the new relationships. I struggled in this relationship when me and Brian first got together. And I couldn't figure out why the hell I was doing it. Because it was a matter of like, I know that I love this person. I know that that's not the root cause. Like, why am I doing this? And I just started to believe I was just fundamentally just a defect. I just was like, there's something wrong with me, and this is just who I am. I'm just this bad person. And without getting into too much detail, because I'm going to throw everybody under the bus with this one, I started looking into my past and into my childhood, and things started clicking. And it had a lot to do with what was modeled, and it clicked. And I was like, oh my God, this was the behavior that I saw growing up. This is what I learned. This is what women do. Women cheat. And it was like, when I put that puzzle together, I stopped. It was almost instant. As soon as I had that revelation of like, oh, this is the behavior that was modeled for me, I was never unfaithful again. Never even crossed my mind. It was very interesting to see that happen so quickly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. That's so like powerful to recognize, because I think that we don't realize how much of our like unconscious, automatic, programmed responding in relationships is rooted in stuff that we're like not even aware of. And one of the things I want to highlight about your story is the way that y'all both have been on this journey for a long time, that it wasn't just like you did this one thing one time, you did the counseling or you did the coaching program, and then everything was better. What it sounds like really took you into this extraordinary relationship, this thriving relationship, was the commitment to stay in the work. To keep learning, to keep growing, to keep healing, both as partners and individually.
Yeah. And being accountable to that and recognizing, right, like doing that inner reflection to recognize your own patterns and then make the decision to do something different.
Yeah.
That was huge. And I think I love that you highlighted that, because I think that's a very common misconception people have of like, oh, I'm going to work on my relationship, or even I'm going to work on myself, and I'm going to do a couple of exercises. I'm going to work with my coach for, about a month, and I'm going to have all of these changes, and I'm going to be like a new person. And it don't work that way. Like
No.
years I have been working on this shit and I'm still not perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
I started
Yeah.
in personal development at like 17, 18 years old,
Yeah.
you know, and it's been over 20 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm still not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. So
yeah, it does. It takes a lot of commitment, because I mean, looking back, we could have just decided like, this isn't worth it. I'm done. I'm going to find somebody new. But none of that would have been healed. And I would have just carried all of those behaviors into my next relationship, and then into the next, and into the next, and into the next. And we wouldn't have what we have now.
it's the same person with a new name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that absolutely happens in people's relationships. And there's something that you just said, Erica, that I also want to bring to the forefront, which is like this idea of it being worth it, like worth it to do the work. Yeah. Because I think that has to be part of the equation. For you have to know why it's worth it. Yeah. Right? You have to decide that it's worth it, that this partner is worth it. Because some relationships, let's be honest, aren't going to feel worth it. Maybe because your partner is like not willing to do any of their work, or there's, you're, despite the work that you're doing, it doesn't feel like there's any return on investment in the partnership. So there's that piece of like, okay, you need to come to the decision within yourself that this is worth it. It's worth it because we have a really good connection. It's worth it because we have a kid together. It's worth it because I want to do this work. It's worth it because it's aligned with who I want to be. And I don't want to just quit and do it again. Like I want to actually do what I can in this relationship. All of that matters. And what we found though is like when couples come to this work and they haven't quite decided that it's worth it, and they're not sure if it's going to be worth it, the resistance to being in the work, especially over an extended period of time, gets in the way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. And it's to the point now where if we feel that a couple or even somebody in the relationship has like one foot in the door, one foot out the door, we may not even choose to take them on as a client, because from my experience, I mean, granted, I don't want to put a blanket statement over the fact that like if one person is working and the other one isn't, it's never going to work, because there have been instances where like one person is like really averse and like doesn't want to do it, and they have like a lot of stories about what it's going to be. And they end up kind of coming along, and they make a lot of progress, and they save their marriage, and it's beautiful. But I find that the majority of people, one person is doing all the work and the other person is kind of riding, their partner's coattails, and they're just getting by to get by, and they're not really digging deep, and they're not doing the work. It doesn't work. I was trying to sugarcoat it a little bit, but I find that it doesn't work.
It just doesn't tend to, no.
Yeah, because a lot of the times what happens, it creates a lot of resentment in the marriage, because you've got one partner that is really gung-ho, and they're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to change. I'm going to make all of these positive behavior shifts, and I'm going to look into my shit, and it's going to be great, and I'm going to grow as a human being and all of this. And their partner is like, yeah, okay, I'll try to work on I statements a little bit. And like, that's as much as they give. And the partner is like, wait a second, I'm doing 95% of the work and you won't even meet me halfway. And it builds a lot of resentment. And once resentment is there, in our experience, you got to catch it, and you got to start working on that, because, it starts going for years, and it's really hard to come back from that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's real. So, like it's really common to have one person feeling like they're doing all the work. And even in your dynamic, like it sounds like you, Erica, were doing a lot of the research, a lot of the learning on the relationship stuff and bringing that to the table. How do you support couples where there is that imbalance. Maybe the other partner's like on board and willing to do the work, but not like as invested as the partner, right? Like that was our dynamic.
You know, when we started with our first, the couple of coaches that we started with, like I reached out, like I was the one that actively sought it out. And then once we got in, it's like, yes, I'm willing to do this, but like, I'm not excited to do this work. Like, I'm willing to do the work, and I'm willing to come along for the ride, but like, I'm not excited to dig into my shit. I had so much shame just about who I was as a person from childhood. I mean, I remember, you know, I think it was our second coach, like, I realized that it was okay to have needs as a human being. Like I wasn't even aware that needs were okay.
Wow.
So like, I mean, it was just, there were so many facets to it. Like I'm willing. Do I want to? Am I excited? Am I jumping for joy? No. Do I want the end result that's going to come out of it? Yes, I do. And that's why I have, you know, the willingness to be open to it and be honest through the process.
Yeah. And I kind of just want to piggyback on that a little bit. You know, a lot of the times it's a matter of digging in a little deeper and figuring out, where is that resistance coming from? Is that resistance coming from, like, you just have up a wall and you don't want to do it just because you don't want to do it? Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes, you know, we hear it a lot. One, you know, the wife has been miserable for years and the husband's like, I don't understand. I feel like we're happy. And they're just not consciously aware. So they don't think anything needs to change because they're perfectly happy. So sometimes that's the case, where they just are not consciously aware that there's even a problem to begin with. You know, and other times, like for like Brian's example, he had a lot of shame. You know, sometimes we have a lot of shadows that we are terrified to look at, because it's scary. It's uncomfortable. It's not easy work. Like working on yourself, working on your relationship, it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination. So sometimes digging into a little bit of, you know, why is that resistance there? What's going on for you? Like, why are you so averse to this? And, you know, sometimes it's a matter of one person is like, I'm already tapped. I'm literally I'm working 80 hours a week, and I'm doing the dishes and the laundry and the childcare, and I'm doing too much, and I don't have it in me to give any more. I'm willing to do bare minimum, but like, my cup is basically empty, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. Like, you're just going to continue to drain yourself. You know, so sometimes that's a struggle that people have, that we have to start unwinding and figuring out, like, what can we do about this? Let's move the needle in the other direction so that we can fill up your cup a little bit. You know, I think that there's a lot of issues. And sometimes even just bringing that to light of like, hey, it seems like you're really resistant. Is, you know, what's going on for you? And then this is where it comes in handy, being able to kind of share our story with clients as we see fit. A matter of like, you know, just to let you know, when we first started working on our stuff, I had to drag him kicking and screaming. He didn't want to do it. And sometimes just them knowing that, like, they're not a bad person for maybe not wanting to do this work, it changes. It changes a little something in them, and they start giving a little bit more.
Love that.
Yeah.
It's so important to make it okay to be where you're at, while also highlighting that, like, this is the path to take to get to the end result that you want, even if there's resistance along the way, and knowing, like, leaning into that resistance, figuring out that resistance, like tuning into what's coming up for you is part of the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm doing a lot of. Do you want to jump in with a question?
It's the Erica and Jenny show.
Well, I feel like you talked quite a bit about, you know, all that it took for you all to get to where you are. But, you know, what advice or wisdom do you have to share about, I don't know, getting to this place, you know, getting through the painful stuff to realize a relationship that feels as good as yours does? create that next level love.
Yeah. I know for me, like we have a piece of homework that we give all our clients, and it's called the Dream Workbook. And it's really a map out of what you want your life to look like. And once I sat down and really figured out what I wanted my life to look like, just that one piece in and of itself took away, I'm going to say like 80% of the fights between us, because it got down to, okay, what's going to move us in the direction that we want to move? And I'm fighting to move towards that thing, rather than, you didn't take the trash out, you didn't cook dinner, whatever it might be. It's what's going to move us as a unit toward our goal, and so the way we do it is we start, individually, what's your dream, and both parties, fill it out without taking into account. Like, we literally tell people, I want you to be as selfish as you possibly can. Do not take your partner into account filling this out at all. Once you're done, now you're going to come together and share those answers with each other and see how aligned you are. And the majority of people are 90% aligned. And so there's just a little bit of kind of, dialing in, but just getting aligned on what you want your lives to look like was a huge piece for me. Certainly you got to learn all the communication stuff and all that, and then, eventually get into working through the childhood wounds and all that, because that's the deep stuff that needs to get addressed. But to really get people, out of the pain and into a happy marriage, you can really you can start with a lot of the surfacey stuff that's, really fairly easy in the big scheme of things, and can be fairly pleasurable too.
I love that too, because I think a lot of people who are struggling in their relationships are often coming to the table about how different they are and how those differences are creating so much pain or disconnect or conflict or whatever. And so it's really cool that you're able to highlight the Venn diagram and like see such significant overlap. Like, you actually aren't so different. So now let's like fine tune the parts that like feel rough. That's really cool.
Yeah. Especially when what you're highlighting their similarities or their connection on is like that end result,
right?
The dream,
the big stuff,
the vision, right? Because it's that vision, it's that why that motivates us to keep going, to lean into what feels hard or takes extra energy or is uncomfortable. And
like setting out on a hike.
And I love that you like bring that question into the room, because like for us that too is one, probably one of the most important tools that we give to our clients, is the simple question, like, what response is more likely to take us to where we want to actually go, what we actually want to achieve. But you can't answer that until you have that vision. And knowing we're both working toward that, like, is it going to help me to complain about the dishes not being done? Like, how can I actually respond in this situation that is more likely to get what we want in the long run? It's so empowering and clarifying around like what really matters here and who we each need to be as partners to get those results. Yeah.
It puts everything in perspective, because it's like, okay, we both want ultimately the same thing. Like, 20 years from now, we want to, have our beautiful home. Maybe we want to live on a farm. Maybe we want to live in a big city, whatever it may be. We want the same thing in 20 years. And then looking at these little things that we're fighting about, it's like, does this matter? Like, does this have any impact on where we want to get to? Like, do the dishes being done every single night have any impact on where we're going to be in 20 years? And usually it's not. Usually it's like, okay, this is like the small things that just don't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Right. Yep.
And with that being said, one of the sayings that I came up with is, typically in relationships, one partner needs to tighten up and the other needs to loosen up. And when you can find that balance, you know, I mean, the dishes is a prime example. She needed to loosen up about the dishes. Yeah. I needed to step up, tighten up, and help out a little bit.
Yeah. There always seems to be, in nearly every relationship, there always seems to be one partner that is like more of the neat freak, that is like, I need things tidy. I need my space clean. It was a big problem for us for a long time. And there's always one partner that's like, they love their organized chaos. I know for Brian, and this was something that we used to argue about like relentlessly, is like, I like everything put away. Everything has to have a home in my home. Everything is very organized and very detailed and everything. He likes all of his shit just out. He needs to be able to see it everywhere. And I'm like, to me, that's like chaotic. And I'm like, I can't work like this. Like, I can't deal with it. And I would literally like clean up behind him. Like, he would like put stuff out and I would like pick it up and put it away. And like 5 minutes later, he'd come back and he'd be like, what happened to my cup? Oh, I put it in the dishwasher. And he's like, but I'm not done with it. Like, I still had like, I still had water in it. Like
yeah. If it's not out, it doesn't exist.
That's exactly.
It's out of sight, out of mind. It's fine.
Right. I don't know how many times I lost something that got put away.
God.
Yeah. Disoriented.
I used to have a really bad habit of like throwing things away. Because like I would look at it and I'm like, well, this is junk. This is purely junk. We don't need this. I don't know why this isn't in our presence. And I would just get rid of it. I just chuck it. And then it was like clockwork, like 4, maybe 5 days later. Sometimes it would even be like a month where like I thought I got away with it. He would be like, hey, you know what? There was this piece of paper on my desk and it had like blue ink on it. And like, I really need that. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh God, I shredded that like a month ago.
Not safe.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that is just, you know, finding out our little quirks about each other and figuring out how to work with them. Because we all have our quirks. We all have our things. And, you know, we can either choose to allow that to, you know, drive a wedge between us, right, or we can learn to give a little, take a little, and move forward.
Yeah. How to work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so important because we do all have little quirks, and a lot of the time we find that partners tend to want their significant other to not have those quirks, to like learn to be more like me. Like learn to be more organized, learn to put everything in its home, right? Or like learn to loosen up and chill out and be okay with the piles, learn to let it not stress you out so much. And when you can shift perspective into how do we understand and make space for those differences? How do we work with it? How do we give a little, right? And take a little? That like changes the dynamic and creates so much more ease. Because there's space for everybody to be who they are, and then it's okay and not a problem.
Yeah. And you know, you really need both sides of whatever it is to create the holism. Like I'll use the example of money. You know, typically in relationships, there's one spender and there's one saver. You know, and so if you were to get 2 savers together, they're going to tighten up. They're not going to spend anything, and they're just going to sit around and not live life because they're always saving. Whereas on the other side, you know, if you got 2 spenders, you're going to go broke really quick. And so, you know, when you can use, you know, the saver to the advantage, you know, and hey, we've got this money put away. All right, well, now the spender gets to help the saver to live a little, and we're going to go and spend this. We're going to come up with a way to utilize this that's, you know, connecting and uplifting for both of us, whatever it might be. You can use the opposites to create that holism, you know, within the marriage.
Yeah. And it's about finding those opposites and making it work for you. Because I know for us, and this has been really helpful in business with us, I am very organized and I'm very analytical. And that's just part of my personality. I'm almost like anal about these kind of things. Whereas like, he's just like free flowing and like whatever happens, everything is fine. And I remember when it used to drive me nuts, and we need both of those aspects in our business, because we need my tight end organized, like, you know, we have to know how much money we're bringing in. We have to know how many clients we have. We have to like have the client notes updated, the homework, all of that has to be very, very, very meticulous. And he comes into, what's the word I'm looking for? He comes in handy, I guess, you know, particularly with my social media. Like, I would never get anything done because I would always be like working on it and editing it and working on it. And like, cause I tend to be more perfectionistic with that.
If it weren't for me, you know, 3 years into our business,
connected wouldn't even be a thing.
She'd still be doing research.
I would. He had to, and I mean, thank God he did. He had to stop me because I was so much into like, no, it's not ready. I need more. I need to do this PowerPoint, and I need to learn about shadow work. And he's like, we're not going to be teaching people shadow work in week 12. Like, you don't need that right now. And I honestly, I needed that because it's like, I was unwilling to look at my perfectionistic.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have it too through in my old business that, like I said, failed. So like I had been through that, and now like, again, we can utilize the two opposites to our advantage.
Exactly. Yin and yang.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. We believe truthfully that our relationships are like divinely designed to support our like growth and expansion, right? So where we need to learn how to relax a little, like our partners are there to teach us. Where they need to learn how to like tighten up a little, we're there to teach them. And that's the beauty of this relationship experience. If you can embrace that and allow it to complement your life and not be a problem to your life.
Yes.
Allow yourself.
It can destroy it if you're not aware.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's a saying, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's basically that, you know, it's a belief that the unconscious mind will literally draw us to somebody that we feel is like the missing parts and pieces within us. And I think looking at it from that perspective of like, okay, if that's true, and I'm drawn to somebody that is the missing parts within Erica, you know, how making sure that like I'm using that to its fullest potential and, you know, using that as a way to create more connection rather than using it to argue and just create disconnection.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So y'all have this beautiful relationship that's inspired you to support other people. And as you've been so open in sharing, the work continues. So we like to kind of wrap up these conversations by asking about what your next level is, because we understand that like you don't ever reach that place where your relationship is just like, it's like great, and now there's no more work to do. There's always more work. There's always more leveling up. There's always ways that we can become even better, happier, more delighted in our relationship. And that's a good thing that we're always like leveling up. So what's your next level?
That's a great question.
It is a good question.
I mean, so I know something that we're looking at implementing and learning more in our relationship is the art of Tantra. We are looking into doing that. That is something that is fascinating, that feels like it's the next level for us. You know, because we've done, without divulging too much information, he tends to be like, you know, a little more private.
I still have some, you know, deep-seated like Christian shame in the realm of sexuality. So.
Right. Sure. You know, we've done a lot of like experimenting with like, you know, BDSM and all of that. And it's, you know, we kind of had the conversation of like, we feel like we've done everything that can be done. We've gotten everything out of, you know, that aspect of our relationship. Now it's like, we actually had the conversation of like, what's the next level? And we think that it's
working down the spiritual realm of Tantra.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
I know for me, what came up, and it's more kind of the external, is the business, and then creating more time for
Yeah.
ourselves and our family.
We need that.
We've been really in the hustle mode for the last, 3 years. And now we're really trying to create create the financial ability to create more time for ourselves so that we can really enjoy ourselves. Because we love working with clients, but if we're always giving, and we're not giving to ourselves, then that, all work and no play makes me a dull boy.
Yes.
Yeah. And, kind of to go along with that, we, I guess our plan for the business and for Be Connected, we're, right now doing just the 2-on-2, which we love. I mean, we feel so much connection with the people that we work with. It just, it's so great. It's such a blessing. But we're only able to help so many people doing a 2-on-2 because there's only so many hours in the week that we can help people. So
most people need nights and weekends, and there's only so many hours.
They're
of those.
booked. Yeah, they're booked. So what we're actually working on now is creating a video program. So it'll be like a standalone video course that people will be able to kind of, if they have a time constraint, or maybe they're financially, they can't afford it, they can do it themselves, the best of their ability. It's not going to be the same as working with us 2-on-2, but it's something to get things moving in the right direction. So, creating the video course is going to be a big thing. And then creating a group program and working with people in more of a group setting. Because it's very different than the 2-on-2. Like, granted, you don't get the individualized support unless you're in the hot seat. Then like you're in it and you're doing it with everybody. But the amount of things that you're able to learn from other couples that are going through it, the amount of community that you feel of like, wow, like they're going through the same thing, and I didn't even realize that was even a thing that we're going through. And it feels good. I know there was, the few group programs that we were a part of, there were things that we were dealing with that I was like, I can't believe I'm going through this. Like, this is, I felt like nobody else was dealing with it. And then you log in and there's another couple that's dealing with the exact same thing. And it's like, oh, I feel like I'm not alone. Yeah. Like I'm not alone
validated,
in this.
all that.
Yeah. So those are a few things that are in the works right now, but it's in the works.
Yep.
Love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then more on the internal side of things, just continuing our own shadow work, definitely the external stuff that needs to be worked on, because that's the external, but it's also, the thoughts, emotions, and the internal world, and healing all that stuff that, it's my present understanding that never ends. So why fight it? Let's play with it.
I think the other thing that we forgot to kind of mention that we've been working on is polarity work. We've been working kind of hard with masculine and feminine energies. In particular, me moving more into my feminine, because I have been in the masculine for so long, and it has been very hard for me to get out of the masculine and, get into the feminine, allow him to lead, allow him to provide. And it's been fascinating to see the difference as I start moving and feeling safe enough to be more in my feminine. And he has started leading and providing. Even that little aspect and those little tweaks have had a really, really big impact on our relationship.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It hasn't been easy, but
it's definitely fun things as we work through them.
Oh,
That brings me to another thought is, so many people attached to just like one idea, one philosophy, like polarity is the thing.
Yeah.
Attachment theory is the thing. There's no one thing. No. Like there's so many pieces to get an individual, let alone a relationship with two individuals. That you have to address all of these things, and certainly you can start on a surface level and eventually you got to go deeper. But to think that it's just any one thing, I really kind of feel like is kind of asinine. But.
Absolutely. And that's a lot of what we do with couples, because we've done so much research. We found the things that work, and we kind of, got rid of the things that don't work. And we teach a lot of different concepts. like
Mhm.
a lot. Like we're putting everything into what we're teaching couples, because
Mhm.
it is like, you know, so many people, I hear it and sometimes I cringe. So many people are like, oh, well, the love languages, as long as he's speaking my love language, we should be fine. And I'm like, oh no, we spend 1 week on love languages and we move along, because you need so much more than just that one thing. It's so multifaceted.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like data, information, tools that are all helpful, but it's not the only, right? You
Mhm.
need like an arsenal of
Mhm.
things.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. You need a lot in that toolbox.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep.
Love it.
Mhm.
Well, so clearly you all know what you're doing and are helping people. How, if anybody watching is like clicking and resonating with the two of you and wanting to know more about your work, how can they learn more about you? What's on the table? How can they work with you?
Mhm.
Let us know.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're, you know, across all socials. So Facebook, Be Connected Relationship Coaching, Instagram, TikTok. It's at Be Connected Relationships. So definitely check out our socials. People are more than welcome to DM either one of us, Erica McKay, Brian McKay, doesn't matter who. You know, whatever questions you have, I am happy to chat with whoever in the DMs. I love it. I love talking to people. So yeah, definitely reach out on socials. Right now, the only thing we have is the 2-on-2. That will eventually be expanding. It's just a matter of when we can get all the pieces in place with that.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, we also have our Facebook group, The
Mm.
Connected Marriage. It's the Connected Marriage, Fighting Fair and Communication Secrets.
Mhm.
And actually, we just uploaded yesterday a free new program. It's got pieces of what we teach our 2-on-2 couples. So
Yep.
If anybody is interested in a free course,
Mhm.
come and check it out. We'd love to have you in there.
Yeah, the part of that that little little course that we uploaded to the group is actually the dream workbook that we talked about. It's, you know, we used to have like a mini version that we would give to people as like kind of like a freebie. We are giving people the full-fledged version that people that are high paying clients actually normally get access to.
Excellent.
So if anybody
Perfect.
even wanted that workbook to where they're like, okay, we just want to make sure that we're aligned, that we want the same things. It is very in-depth and very detailed. It's going to take you some time to fill it out, but it's one of those things that like you will get your answer of to like, are we aligned? How much do we have in common? Do we want the same things? And what do we do if we don't have the same things, you know, and kind of going from there too. So that's
Beautiful.
You know, a piece that people can get in the group as well.
Yeah. And can you say the name of the group again?
Sure. It's called The Connected Marriage, Fighting Fair and Communication Secrets.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you so much.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm
Thank
sure
you.
we'll
This has been
guys.
a great conversation.
keep
Yeah,
talking for a
it's
really
been
long time. There are many more directions I wanted to go, but I think this has been so enlightening, so inspiring, because you really are such a beautiful example of what's possible and how far we can come in our relationships, what we can create in our relationships when we do the work on ourselves, when we commit ourselves to learning about relationships,
That's it.
because
Yeah.
that's a really big piece too.
And getting better. Yeah.
You know, like relationships are something that we can master. And it's not just mastering one part of relationships, as you were just saying, Brian. It's like there's so many pieces of it, so many tools, so many skills, so many parts of ourselves.
Self mastery.
Right. That need to be attended to, that it, you know, it is this journey. But and even though the journey doesn't end, like I want to really highlight this because you illustrate it so well. The journey can accelerate and become like a lot easier and more fun. Where now, like you did the hard work for a while, but got to this place where your relationship was thriving. And now, even though you're still doing the work, now it's like the exciting work. Now it's like, how can we make our sex life even better? How can we make our business even better? How can we enjoy our time together even more? How can we like up level who we be and what our energy is and how we balance each other and lead one another? And
that's fun stuff.
That's like I mean, if you're into personal growth, like we are, like that's the juicy stuff we all really want to get.
It's one thing to move from, you know, bad to good, but it's another thing to move from good to great.
Yes.
That's the next part of our journey.
Yes. And that and so I just want like everybody who's listening to hear that it's like when we talk about this journey being a thing that we keep doing, it's not like it's hard work forever. There's parts of it that maybe feel harder sometimes, but like it gets so much easier once you've mastered some of these initial shifts and lessons and tools and healing work. Then now you get into the sweet spot, which
major upside,
which is so beautiful and fun.
Absolutely.
So,
so thank you for being here.
And sharing.
Thank you guys.
And for the work you're doing in the world.
Oh, well, thank you guys. You guys are doing a beautiful work as well. I mean,
I'm excited to interview you guys and flip this around.
Flip the script.
Right. That'd be awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, let's stay in touch. And y'all, anybody listening, please get connected to be connected. Get connected to Brian and Erica. They are clearly a source of love and light in this world, and we all need more of that.
Thank you.
So,